Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pickle Juice. Today I'm really excited to have a mate of mine on actually. So Mikey and I have known each other probably 5 years or something like that at this point, maybe a bit less actually. Got to know each other probably during the pandemic actually when I was working at Lead
Yeah.
Feeder. Did a lot of content together back then. Did a lot of work together with the stuff that you're doing at Growth Genie, and we did many webinars to many thousands of people back then. Back when webinars were the shit. That was like, do you remember the days when we had like 2,000 people registering for a webinar? I think you
Yeah.
struggle to get that nowadays, but those were the days, man. How are you, bud?
Yeah, good. Yeah, but yeah, I missed those days. It was I just turn up and speak for the 30 minutes, and there was lots of marketing and sales leaders' eyes on it. So it was easy days, easy money for us.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I actually didn't say who you are. This is Michael Hanson, the CEO and founder of Growth Genie, by the way. I'm just so used to seeing Mikey. Like, we just chat over WhatsApp or chat over the phone or whatever. It's just like a normal conversation. I have to remember that there's other people here that are watching this being like, who is he talking to? So, Michael, give a quick intro on yourself, mate. Tell us what you do at Growth Genie and give us a quick rundown.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I set up Growth Genie about 5 years ago. So just as we were meeting, and I think the big problem I saw in the space of sales is if you're listening to this podcast and you're like a director or a VP, like you get so much spam. I think that's got worse since I started the business. Now you got AI and ChatGPT. So we focus on sales enablement, which is, how can you train SDRs, AEs, CSMs, any type of salespeople to stand out and be different. And there's two ways through which we do that. One is through playbooks and process, and then the other is through training and coaching. We work with, small startups all the way to like big Fortune 500 companies as well.
Nice, man. So, let's talk a little bit because we were talking about this just beforehand, like struggles within the business and stuff. If you're comfortable talking about it, but like being
Yeah.
a founder of an organization, small team, right? So you're a small business. Tell us about some of the struggles that you've encountered while building your business along the way, mate.
Yeah, I think we're a service business, so I think scalability is always a problem. I think that's a difference versus a SaaS business. I think that founder-led sales problem. We're a company of about five full-time people and maybe five part-time people that we work with. But it's funny, even though I'm a CEO, I'm essentially like a glorified salesperson really that's bringing in a lot of new business. I'm kind of almost like a head of sales and marketing for the company. And then we have, like a really great operations team now that does all of our training, playbooks, etc. My focus is really on getting new business, but I think ultimately I would love to have someone who would come in and do all the sales as well themselves. That's kind of like my next step. And then, everyone always says that line, what does it work on the business, not in the business, right? So that's like ultimately what my end goal would be. I really enjoy doing what we do. I love working with salespeople, love helping them. Sales is like a very difficult job, very stressful. So when we see, our clients succeed, that's great. But ultimately, I would like to have more of that, be an actual CEO versus, just a CEO in words. So
Yeah, I get it. I think it's so the thing that you just mentioned there around scalability, right, as a services business, like it's so difficult. Like because think about it, it's easy to scale a product, but you're not a product, you're a person, and time is
yeah,
the issue there. So scaling your time is near impossible. And one of the things as well that I find is the way to scale is to bring more people on that would then be able to offer a similar service to what you do. But there's issues with that as well
yeah,
because people don't see it the same way as you do. Like that's something that
yes.
I found. And maybe it's a matter of letting go a little bit, right, and just accepting that it's just going to be that way, and people do it differently to how you do it. But at the same time, they're not going to give a shit as much as you will because it's not their business, regardless of
Yeah.
what you say or how motivated somebody is. They are not going to give a shit as much as you do. That's my
Yeah.
experience and my opinion. What are your thoughts?
100%, yeah. I was going to refer to Gary V actually. I'm hit and miss with him. He's obviously a very like louder than life American type guy. So he's Marmite, even just with me. Some things I love that he says, some things I don't. But one of the things he said that really resonated with me, and this was years ago. He said it when I was just starting my business, and I kind of only understood later once I hired a few people. But like, you cannot expect your staff to care much about or work as much or care much about your business as you do. So it's like, even if they're doing like 50-60% of the work that like the CEO is doing, that's good, right? So I think it's, obviously it's your baby, you're the majority shareholder, all those things. So I think that was definitely like a realization I came to. And of course, you're going to get like some, A players, they call them, that are going to work harder than others and hustle harder than others. But in general, like if you're the founder of a company, naturally you're going to outwork everyone else on your team.
Fair. One of the things you talk about, mate, is having salespeople think like marketers. Tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of my background is marketing. I've done content marketing roles at my last company, CloudTask. I was VP of Growth, which was sales and marketing. And I think the thing I always say to salespeople, which is very difficult for them to get their head around of, is like share content that's useful, even if they don't buy from you, right? And obviously, sales' job is to sell. But the way I describe it is, what are the things that they're sharing with their colleagues when you're not in the room, right? Because actually, let's imagine like a proposal as a piece of content often marketing help with. That proposal is not for like the champion that you've been having conversations with, because they should be bought in already. It's actually for when they're having a conversation with their CEO or CFO or whoever it is. So it's actually for that person. And there's loads of other instances like that. Like, sometimes you have a conversation with someone, they're not ready to buy, but there is interest, and they say, give me a few months, I need to hire X, Y, and Z person. So in those 3 months, you want to be nurturing them the same way as like in advertising, you have, digital advertising that's like following people around like cookies. Salespeople can be doing that as well. And the benefit of sales is you can customize your content based on, when we spoke last week, you mentioned X, Y, and Z. Here's a useful piece of content. And I think the thing we get into in terms of mindset is like, don't be a transactional salesperson that is like, I'm only going to get on a Zoom call with you if you buy my stuff and we talk about business, and actually be someone that's just generally helpful. And marketing content is a really good way of doing that.
I fully agree, by the way. Absolutely fully agree. Like that's one of the things that I say to when I'm talking to sales as well, right? Similar to the note that you've just mentioned there, would be if you're saying that, hey, the content's not working because we're not seeing an immediate uptick in sales, right? Like there's a thing I shared on LinkedIn yesterday. I think you commented on it as well, as like, looking at marketing in terms of like, we're seeing an uptick immediate one day quickly, like let's invest, and then it goes down. We're not seeing sales going, okay, quickly, we need to cut spending, crazy, right? But we're seeing, like, one of the things I say to sellers that are in that mindset where, our content's not working, it's not converting people, blah, 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 is like, well, does it make sense? Is the content, first of all, focused on your ICP, so your ideal customer? Is it relevant? Is it helpful? And if all of those things are an answer to yes, I was like, then it's definitely helping somewhere. It's just probably not that measurable, right? So like, I think you need to look at it with common sense. People are not, especially if you're selling like high ticket items, like nobody's going to go read a blog post and then come to you and go, oh shit, take my money quick. I've did this 100k euro deal that per year I'm going to go buy from you now because I've just read this blog post, or I've just gone to this webinar, or I've just downloaded this ebook, whatever it might be, right? It doesn't work that way. Like, we're talking about multi-touches across many, many people on an account. The same as when you're selling into an account. You're going to be most successful in an account when you multi-thread, right? When you go across multiple people in that account. Let's say in an account, if you're going after large ticket sizes, right, you're probably selling to a minimum of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in order where you want to be surrounding yourself around those people. And some of those won't be decision makers. Like, there'll be a handful on there that won't have too much of a sway in the decision, but they still need to be involved, right? And it's the same sort of thinking when we're talking about marketing stuff, similar to what you said. So couldn't agree with you more, mate.
Yeah, and I can actually give you an example. Funny enough, I'm going to have a hard stop after this podcast because I've got a sales call coming up, and it was a really interesting instance because so I first spoke to the VP of sales for the US, and he then really liked what I said in the first call. So he invited all of his colleagues, like literally all of them, like his CRO, his VP of sales for Europe, his head of customer success, his head of BDR, and then we got on the call. And one of the problems that I had is they're looking for help like across the sales funnel, so for like pipeline generation, but also for customer success, etc. And I only had half an hour on the call, and I kind of focused quite a lot on BDR stuff. And then they said to me, they were like, "Oh, this is interesting, but what about all the, everything else that we need as well?" So what I then did, I was able to book calls with the three departments basically separately, but I had different content for each of them, right? I had to personalize the content to each people. And yeah, as you said, like, this term account-based marketing is like a big buzz term, but there's also account-based sales, because if you've got account-based marketing, then you're able to then use different types of content and different stakeholders within the company that I was able to do because I'm into marketing and I know that I need this different types of content for different stakeholders. So
yeah, that's not rocket science either, mate, right? That's like, it's just, I mean, it makes sense. That's the thing. People don't use their bloody common sense when it comes to these things. It's black or white, it's a 1 or a 0. It's not, right? There's a lot of gray in there. So you need to make sure that you're, well, as you just said there, you need to make sure that you're speaking to the audience that you're going after, right? And it's hard. There's no way to just click your fingers and it's massively overly scaled, right? It's hard work gets you there, right? The same with account-based marketing. Like I remember some account-based marketing campaigns we ran early days back in Exponia times of 2018 or so. And we had an intern that was personalizing ads in a spreadsheet per company. So her sole job was like ad copy for these specific companies. Like it wasn't automated. There was no like large language model behind it. No chat GPT that was running behind that was filmed. This is 2018, right? But that's how we surrounded accounts though. And it cost us next to nothing. We had an intern there that was relatively cost efficient, right? We didn't want to invest in a massive software like Terminus or something like that was going to cost us over $100,000 a year. So we just said, hey, we'll get somebody in to give us a hand with it. And it again, to go back to your point, we tailored the message to the audience that we were going after, and it worked. But it was hard work, right? And that's the point here, right? Changing the lanes a little bit here, mate. So on this podcast, people have seen other episodes where at the beginning I clink my glass with somebody and we say cheers and we have a drink together. So you're quite open and you've spoken about it on LinkedIn a number of times that you quit drinking 2 years ago now at this point, a bit longer, 3 years ago.
I kind of quit drinking really about 5 years ago, but then I would, it wasn't a thing where I was like, oh, I've stopped drinking forever. I would like drink maybe a few times a year. And then I kind of stopped that because even with that drinking, I was getting bad hangovers. Yeah, it's probably 2 and a bit years since I last touched alcohol.
Okay, and how has that impacted you?
I would say I just have a lot more energy. I think you get in a rhythm with it because I've had a lot of friends who've approached me, especially people like yourselves who've got young kids and starting a family, and they go out on a big night and then the next day they've got like a toddler in their arms or whatever, and they're like, oh, I can't do it on a hangover anymore. Like, what's it like not drinking? I'm thinking about quitting myself. And normally what I say to them is, the first couple of months often is like getting in a rhythm, because often I think at the start you kind of want to sometimes separate yourself from your like friends who are like big drinkers, etc. But then once you're comfortable with it after a few months, actually I'm very social now. I'm like more social than I've ever been. So I still go to the pub, I still go to parties and weddings and even, nightclubs very occasionally. And I just enjoy myself and enjoy the music and enjoy the conversation. So no, it's been a really good thing. It's like I get all the benefits of socializing, but like without the hangover.
I fully understand that. I've over the past couple of years cut down massively as well, right? It doesn't make me feel good. that's the issue, right? And physically and mentally, right? And in the past weeks, I haven't drank anything actually, and I feel the best I've felt in I don't know how long, right? I haven't touched any. I had COVID, so I was like, oh, I'm not gonna even have and in any case I'm not a big drinker anyway. If anything, it would be a beer or two and that'd be it, right? But yeah, certainly interesting. I've been thinking about it the past day or two. I was like, will I just not bother with this anymore? Is it, but anyway, interesting. Let's change lanes again, going on to your the Cosmic Bridge podcast, which you started not that long ago, actually, right? It was like a year ago, maybe. When did you start?
Yeah, about 18 months ago. Yeah, I was doing one a week. I've stopped now, so we're going to, start a season 2. I'm kind of looking back and kind of reflecting. But yeah, interestingly, with a little news announcement, I'm going to change the name of Growth Genie to Cosmic Growth. I'm hoping by the end of the year we'll have a new website, and that will almost be like the Cosmic Bridge and Growth Genie in one, because we've got a framework called Cosmic, which we can put in the show notes, which is actually like a sales framework, but relates to the podcast, which is we talk about this thing like spiritual and material balance. Spiritual can be a word that freaks some people out, but essentially in a business sense is more of that like emotional side of selling, because we think especially B2B, a lot of jargon is used, things like efficiencies, optimized words that don't really mean anything, versus thinking, okay, I'm selling to a CMO, what are some of like the emotions maybe they're feeling, because maybe they're feeling like upset with the sales team because the sales team never use their content. Maybe the sales team are frustrated with marketing because they don't think the content is good, right? Just getting into that more emotional side of buying, as well as the material, which of course is important, and that's, your metrics, your KPIs, and all of that stuff. But we think really in business, if you can get the balance of the two, that's great. And I love, there's a really old quote by Zig Ziglar where he says, people buy based on emotions, but justify based on logic. And I think that's kind of really the essence of Cosmic.
Nice, man. So, like, how long did it take you to come up with that concept? Like, was it bashing around your brain for a couple of years? And how did you come to the realization, hey, I'm going to create a model here?
Yeah, it was more, I'd always thought of this like balance thing, and I not studied, but kind of found through, I'm quite into Carl Jung, the psychologist, and he talks a lot about like Taoism, which is like the Chinese philosophy, which is essentially that, like, everyone would have seen the yin and yang symbol, which is like everything's, these poles that exist. And one of our trainers, when I started hiring for Growth Genie, a guy, Mike Sanchez, who does all of our US training, he said to me, he's like, we need a framework. He's like, you've got BANT, SPICE, MEDIC, all these things. And he thinks, I actually think what we do is better, but we need to like simplify it for people in some type of framework. And then we actually did a workshop in Colombia because I went out to see him. That's where he's based. And yeah, we came up with Cosmic, which is obviously like quite a nice sounding, catchy name as well. So that's how it came about.
How have people reacted to the Cosmic thing?
Yeah, really well. I think the only bit of Cosmic that I think freaks people out is that word spiritual. Some people really resonate with that. Other people, it kind of turns them off because they either think of like dogmatic religion or they think of like hippies in California. But I think it's always a good sales tactic is calling out the elephant in the room. So I normally say to people, look, I know spiritual is sometimes a word that can freak people out. And yeah, I think people really relate to it. And I think it's really relevant for the modern day because of, obviously there's all this talk of like, one, will AI take over sales, but will AI take over the whole world, right? And I think the salespeople that are going to succeed are the ones that can be more human and connect on emotion, because that's obviously the one thing AI doesn't have is like emotion. So that's the way salespeople are going to stand out, is if they can connect with people on that emotional level.
Interesting. Okay, and on the podcast then, mate, like how has that helped you with your business? Is it like a passion project for you? I know it is, but is it is it a passion project, or is it actually helping the business?
It's been I would say, I didn't start it as like a lead gen tool. It was more of a passion project. There have been people that reach out to me that are, qualified for our services, because I don't really talk about sales tactics. Maybe get into the mindset side of things, which is relevant to salespeople. But so like the sobriety thing is something I've talked about in there. And I've had people reach out to me like, oh yeah, I'm like 10 years sober. And I people that I didn't even know that didn't drink, right? That had been like clients of mine. So yeah, it's definitely started some sales conversations, but it's been more of a, passion project. But as you know, with your job in marketing, right? Like, often like personal branding piece can help with business. And I think, this is a big debate at the moment because LinkedIn, unfortunately, has turned like a little bit into Facebook. And the thing I always say to people when they're posting is like, keep the majority of your content professional, like 80-90%, 10% of it, people do want to learn from you. And like, especially we've actually found LinkedIn postings really good for things like customer success and like actually your current customers, like learning about you as well. So yeah, it's been a bit of a mix.
Interesting. I was just looking at some of the guests that you've had as well. They're pretty impressive. Like the Sister Bliss from Faithless, right? How did you manage to get her on?
That was just nepotism. Sister Bliss is the mother of my nephew, so the ex of my brother. They split up sadly, but yeah, so I know her very well.
There you go. I was wondering. I was like, how in the name of Christ did you get her on? Because it's a battle to get people on as well, though. Like that's a battle. It takes time and effort, and you need to be outreach. It's similar to doing an SDR role, right?
Yeah, 100%.
It's easier to get the foot in the door than to sell something, but at the same time, it is tricky. Are you doing that outreach yourself? Are you getting somebody else to do it for you? Is Lawrence or somebody doing it for you?
Yeah, I've been doing it myself. Sometimes I get recommendations from people that like the show and say, hey, I've got this person who I think would be a good guest. I think I built like a brand on LinkedIn, so I actually find like LinkedIn's a little bit easier to find guests because they go on my LinkedIn and they're like, oh, he's got an audience. But yeah, if I'm reaching out to people who are more on like YouTube or Instagram where I don't really have a presence, it's a little bit more difficult because they're kind of like, who is this guy?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Interesting. No, it's like and LinkedIn, you've made the point there. Like, I think LinkedIn have made some mistakes as of late in terms of what they're doing with their algorithm. In terms of, as you said, it's turned a bit into Facebook. It is 100% turned into Facebook. My experience now is that the algorithm's liking stuff that's less professional and focus and putting more behind stuff that's just like, I don't know, emotional maybe, or like, look at how great I am type of posts, right? They're the ones that work particularly well, right? Or stuff that's not really offering too much value in terms of like actionable advice or information. That's the stuff that the algorithm's not prioritizing for whatever reason, and prioritizing the look at me with my kids stuff. That's the stuff that it's being prioritized, and that's the stuff that's getting the most engagement, which is wild. I really don't understand it. Like, are you seeing the same thing?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story is, I would say a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, my engagement was quite consistent. So it'd be, somewhere around like 5, maybe to 20,000 views per post. Whereas now it's like either like hundreds of thousands or millions or like 500 views. It's like very up and down. But from like more of focusing on the content perspective, as I said, I do some like non-business posts. I try to keep it, less than maybe 10-20%. But I did a post that was about these two kids who are Gen Z, they're like 14 and 16. And they got a guy from committing suicide. They took him off the tracks up in Yorkshire. And I just said, hey, it was great to see the story because everyone's always complaining about Gen Z and that, there's some like heroic kids out there. They're super viral. I had like over 3 million views. But obviously some people like that in my network, but I got zero business out of it. And then I think it was like last week or 2 weeks ago, I did a post around multi-threading, but it was like very kind of like technical, geeky sales stuff. I think it literally had like 600 views. And someone from one of our customers, but a Fortune 500 customer, saw it. There's now going to be like a very big deal on the table with them for an upsell. And then he's also like referred me to someone else who's like one of his clients, right? So it just goes to show you, like, don't focus too much on the vanity metrics, because that was like one of the lowest performing posts I had for the year in terms of views, but it was actually one of the best performing if you look at like potential revenue generated from it.
Yeah, and I think the message there is the content, whatever, regardless of the engagement, the content itself should always stay true to offering value, right? Yeah. And being specific to your ICP. Not all the time, but if you're looking to get business out of LinkedIn, you should be doing that. And just as you said, the engagement, because of how LinkedIn have prioritized their algorithm, or whatever their algorithm prioritizes now, you're not going to get the engagement in those type of posts. Don't expect it. You're not going to get it. Yeah. The reason for it is because they want you to put money behind it, and they, it's clear as day what they're doing, Yeah. But they want you to put money behind it and buy those impressions rather than them actually giving it to you, right? So it's So the point being, stay true to what you offer. Stay true to being given actionable advice, actionable information to people, because ultimately, if you continue to do that and be consistent with it, you will see, you will reap the rewards of it eventually, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Mikey, mate, we've just come to the end of it, bud. It's been great speaking with you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, Andy. If anyone wants to get in contact with me, I'm very active on LinkedIn, Michael Hanson, or you can go to our website, which for now is growthgenie.co. And as I said, that may change at the end of the year.
We'll share everything into the description here, or into the notes. And yeah, I hope the prospect call goes well now, mate. I hope, oh shit, you're just running over, but I'll leave you to it. Mikey, thanks a million for coming on, mate. We'll speak soon, yeah?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. There's been another episode of The Pickle Juice. See you again next week for more great content. Cheers, Mikey.
I think I have to wait for it to be 100% now. So the uploading?
Hold on.
It's got saying 99%.
I can stop it now. Hold on.